I watched her stuff my clothes into trash bags, calling me worthless. She didn't know I was holding the deed to this entire house in my jacket pocket. 23 years of marriage. And she never once asked where the mortgage payments really came from. Tonight, she would finally learn the truth. Before we continue, if stories about quiet strength and hidden truth speak to you, go ahead and subscribe. This channel is built on real-life lessons that don't need to shout to be heard. Now, let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus Thompson was 48 years old when his wife told him to leave. But this story doesn't start there. It starts 23 years earlier, when a young sanitation worker met a young woman with big dreams and bigger ambitions. Vanessa was everything Marcus admired. Sharp, driven, beautiful in a way that made him want to be better. She worked entry-level sales at a pharmaceutical company, and even then, you could see she was going places. Marcus worked the early morning routes, picking up the city's trash before most people woke up. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. His grandmother used to tell him that dignity wasn't about the job, it was about the man doing it. He carried those words with him every day. They got married in a small church ceremony. Nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Marcus's grandmother was there, sitting in the front row, smiling that smile that said she knew something everyone else didn't. She passed away 3 months later. Left Marcus a life insurance policy worth $180,000. He was 25 years old, and suddenly he had more money than he'd ever seen in his life. Most young men would have bought a car, taken a trip, told everybody. Marcus did none of that. He called the only person he trusted with real advice, Mr. Raymond Pierce. Raymond Pierce was a real estate attorney who'd worked in the community for 30 years. He'd helped Marcus's grandmother with her will, and before she died, she told Marcus, "If you ever need wisdom, you go see Raymond. That man knows how to build things that last." So Marcus went, sat in that small office on Jefferson Street, and laid it all out. Mr. Pierce didn't rush him, just listened. Then he said something Marcus never forgot. "Money is loud, son. Wealth is quiet. You decide which one you want to be." Marcus chose quiet. He took that $180,000 and bought his first property, a small rental duplex on the east side, fixed it up himself on weekends, rented both units. The cash flow wasn't huge, but it was steady. Then he bought another property, then another. He created an LLC, called it MJ, Thompson Holdings, kept everything clean, everything documented. Vanessa knew he was doing something with property, but when he tried to explain it in those early years, she'd wave it off. "We don't need that right now, baby," she'd say. "I'm making good money. We're fine." So Marcus stopped explaining. He just kept building. Years passed. Vanessa's career took off. She moved from sales associate to territory manager to regional director. Her salary grew, and with it, her confidence. She started handling what she called the family finances, utilities, groceries, her car payment, insurance. She was good at it, organized, proud. What she didn't know was that Marcus was handling everything else. The mortgage on the house they lived in, the house he'd bought in his name during their second year of marriage, the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the real costs. He never corrected her when she talked about our mortgage or our house. Love, to him, meant letting her shine. If she needed to feel like the provider, he could live with that. Their son Khalil was born in year 5. Marcus held that baby boy and made a promise. His son would grow up secure, even if he never knew why. So Marcus kept working, kept investing. The rental properties generated income. He reinvested it, bought a small commercial building when the market dipped. His sanitation job promoted him to supervisor. More responsibility, better pay. But Marcus kept living like he made half of what he did. Drove a modest car. Wore simple clothes. Saved and invested the difference. Family gatherings became a routine. Every Sunday after church, they'd go to Vanessa's parents' house. Deacon Jerome Willis and his wife Lorraine had raised Vanessa and her younger sister Janai in that house. It was their pride. Paid off the mortgage early, or so they thought. What they didn't know was that Marcus had been watching them struggle with payments for years, watching Deacon Jerome's pride fight against his worry. So one day, Marcus made a call, set up an anonymous payment through Mr. Pierce's office, paid off the remaining $73,000 on their mortgage. When the bank sent the letter saying their home was free and clear, Deacon Jerome cried at the dinner table, called it a miracle, said it must have been the prayers, maybe some mix-up at the bank that worked in their favor. Vanessa smiled, hugged her father, said, "Maybe it's because we've been doing so well, Daddy. Maybe I was able to help more than you realized." Marcus sat at that table, cutting his food, saying nothing. Deacon Jerome looked at him and said, "You see this, Marcus? This is what hard work and smart planning does. My daughter's been taking care of us." Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. "She's something special." And she was. That was the truth. She was special. She just didn't know the whole truth. The years moved like water, smooth, steady, unremarkable. Khalil grew into a thoughtful young man, quiet like his father, observant. He watched his mother shine at family events, watched her confidence grow with every promotion, every raise. He also watched his father, watched him come home tired from work, never complaining. Watched him sit quietly while his grandfather praised his mother's success. Watched him smile when people talked about Vanessa like she was carrying the whole family. Khalil didn't understand it when he was younger, but as he got older, he started to see something. His father's silence wasn't weakness, it was choice. By the time Khalil was in college, studying for his master's degree in business, he started asking questions, not to his mother, but to his father. "Dad, why don't you ever talk about what you do?" Marcus would shrug. "I do my job, son. That's enough." But one day, Khalil found papers in the garage, documents from the LLC, property deeds, bank statements. He brought them to his father, not accusatory, just curious. "Dad, what is all this?" Marcus looked at his son for a long moment. Then he said, "Some things I kept separate to protect us. Protection doesn't always need to be seen, Khalil. It just needs to be there." Khalil asked the question that had been building for years. "Does Mom know?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "She never asked, son." Khalil felt the weight of that, felt the unfairness of it. "Why don't you tell her?" Marcus put his hand on his son's shoulder. "Because the truth doesn't need defending, Khalil. It just needs time." But time, as it turns out, has a way of running out. The shift started about 6 months before everything came apart. Vanessa made new friends at work, successful women, ambitious women, women who looked at life like a ladder you had to climb faster than everyone else. They'd go out after work, talk about their marriages, their partners, their lives. And slowly, Vanessa started seeing Marcus differently, not through her own eyes anymore, but through theirs. "Your husband still works sanitation?" one of them asked, not meanly, just surprised. Vanessa felt something tighten in her chest. Embarrassment, maybe. Or shame. She started making comments at home, small ones at first. "You ever think about doing something different, Marcus?" He'd look up from his dinner. "I'm good where I am, baby." She'd sigh. "I just think you could do more." More became the word she used most. You could be more. We could have more. I need more. Marcus heard it, but he didn't respond. What could he say? That he'd been more all along? That their house, her car, her parents' home, all of it was built on his quiet work? No, he couldn't say it. Not without sounding like he was keeping score. And Marcus Thompson didn't keep score. He kept promises. 3 weeks before the trash bags, Vanessa decided to trade in her BMW. She'd been driving it for 6 years, loved it, but wanted something newer. She went to the dealership, picked out the car she wanted, started the paperwork. The salesman asked for the title to her current car. She said she'd bring it in. When she got home, she looked everywhere. Couldn't find it. Called the DMV. They told her the title was in Marcus Thompson's name, not hers. She called Marcus at work, voice tight. "Why is my car in your name?" Marcus kept his voice level. "I helped with the purchase, remember? Must have put it in mine. I can transfer it if you need." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Just handle it," and hung up. That night she didn't mention it. Neither did he. But something had cracked. Small, hairline, barely visible. But there. 2 weeks before the bags, Deacon Jerome mentioned something at Sunday dinner. Said he got a letter from the county about property taxes. Vanessa perked up, always ready to help her parents. "You need help paying it, Daddy?" Jerome smiled, shook his head. "No, baby, it's already paid. Early, like it has been for years. The Lord keeps providing." Vanessa smiled, assumed it was some church program, or maybe funds she'd helped them with over time. Marcus was sitting right there, coffee cup in hand, watching his son watch him. Khalil's eyes asked the question his mouth wouldn't. "When are you going to say something, Dad?" Marcus just took another sip of coffee. The night it all fell apart started like most nights. Vanessa had invited some co-workers over for dinner. She'd been doing that more lately, hosting, showing off the house, playing the role of successful executive with the perfect life. Marcus stayed in the background mostly, grilled the food, made sure everyone had what they needed. One of Vanessa's friends, a woman named Simone, made a comment. Said it jokingly, but jokes can cut. "It's so nice that you're not intimidated by your wife's success, Marcus. Most men couldn't handle it." Everyone laughed, including Vanessa. She added, "Well, at least someone in this house is making real money." More laughter. Marcus set down the plate he was holding and excused himself to the garage. He stood there in the dim light, breathing slowly, trying to center himself. 23 years. 23 years he'd carried weight nobody saw, bore disrespect with grace. Let his wife shine while he stood in shadow. And tonight, she'd laughed. Laughed at him in front of strangers, in his own house. Vanessa followed him out. Her friends were still inside, watching through the kitchen window. She was emboldened by their presence, by the wine, by something Marcus couldn't quite name. "You just going to walk away in the middle of hosting?" Marcus turned to her. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Vanessa, I think you should go back inside with your friends." She crossed her arms. "No, I think we need to talk about this. About you. About how you just exist in this house. You're not contributing. You're not growing. You're just here. And honestly, Marcus, I'm tired of it." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus looked at his wife, really looked at her, and for the first time in 23 years, he saw a stranger. "If that's how you feel," he said quietly, "then maybe I should go." She blinked. She hadn't expected him to agree. Some part of her had wanted him to fight, to argue, to prove he cared. But Marcus was done fighting for recognition. "Yeah," she said, her voice harder now, defensive. "Maybe you should. Maybe you should leave. Tonight." Marcus nodded slowly. He walked past her, back into the house, past her staring friends, past the dinner table still set with food he'd cooked. He went to the bedroom and started pulling clothes from the closet. Vanessa followed, and when she saw him actually packing, something in her snapped. She grabbed trash bags from the kitchen and started stuffing his clothes into them herself. "Worthless," she muttered as she shoved shirts and pants into the bags. 23 years, and what do you have to show for it? What do we have to show for it? Marcus didn't answer. He just kept packing methodically. His hand brushed against his jacket hanging in the closet. Inside the pocket were papers. Papers he'd picked up from the safe deposit box that very morning. Because somewhere deep down, Marcus had known this was coming. Known that truth has a way of demanding its moment. He folded the jacket carefully, paper still inside, and placed it on top of one of the bags. Her parents arrived within the hour. Vanessa had called them, crying, saying Marcus was leaving, saying she couldn't do this anymore. Deacon Jerome and Lorraine Willis walked into that house like they were walking into a crisis. Jerome found Marcus in the garage, loading bags into his car. "Son, what's going on here?" Marcus closed the trunk. "Sir, Vanessa asked me to leave. So I'm leaving." Jerome's face hardened. "You need to be a man and fix this. You don't just walk out on your wife." Marcus looked at the man who'd been his father-in-law for 23 years, the man whose mortgage he'd paid, whose dignity he'd protected. And he said very quietly, "Sir, with respect, everything's already fixed. You just don't know it yet." Jerome frowned, confused. But before he could respond, Marcus got in his car. He looked up at the second-floor window and saw Khalil standing there, phone in his hand. The boy texted his father. "I'm sorry, Dad." Marcus texted back, "Don't be. Truth is coming." He drove to Mr. Raymond Pierce's house. Raymond lived in a modest home on the other side of town. He'd been expecting Marcus, had been expecting this call for years, if he was honest. When Marcus walked through the door, Raymond just asked one word. "Time?" Marcus nodded. "Time." They went to Raymond's home office. Raymond had kept meticulous records. Every property purchase, every payment, every document. They pulled the files, house deeds, car titles, mortgage records, bank statements. The full picture of what Marcus had built while everyone assumed he'd built nothing. "You sure about this?" Raymond asked. Marcus sat back in the chair, looking at the papers spread across the desk. "She deserves the truth," he said. "They all do. I'm not doing this to hurt her, Raymond. I'm doing it because, after 23 years of being invisible, I need to be seen." Raymond nodded. He'd seen this before. Good men who gave everything and got nothing but disrespect. The law was clear on this. The house was Marcus's separate property, purchased before the marriage with inheritance money. The LLC properties were his alone, documented and legal. The car titles, all in his name. Even Vanessa's parents' house, the mortgage he'd paid. There was a paper trail. Raymond made calls. To the county recorder's office, to the DMV, to the bank. Official notices would be sent. Truth doesn't need to shout. But sometimes it needs documentation. The next morning, Vanessa woke up in an empty house. Well, not empty. Khalil was still there, but he wasn't talking to her. She tried explaining, tried justifying, but he just looked at her, with eyes that reminded her too much of Marcus. Disappointed. Sad. She went to work, trying to lose herself in meetings and emails, but her mind kept drifting. She felt righteous still. Felt justified. Marcus had been dead weight, right? She was the one carrying the family, right? By the time she got home that evening, there was a certified letter waiting from the county recorder's office. She opened it standing in the driveway. Property title verification for 847 Oakmont Drive. Owner of record, Marcus James Thompson. Sole owner. Purchased year 2 of marriage. She read it 3 times. 4 times. The words didn't change. The house she'd been living in. The house she'd called hers. The house she'd just kicked him out of. It was his. Had always been his. She walked inside on shaking legs and sat on the porch stairs. The same stairs Marcus had painted 5 years ago. The same stairs she'd sat on 1,000 times without ever wondering who actually owned them. She called her mother, could barely get the words out. "Mama, the house. It's Marcus's. It's been his the whole time." Lorraine went quiet on the other end. "What are you talking about, baby?" Vanessa explained, her voice breaking. Lorraine told her to come over. They needed to talk as a family. But before Vanessa could leave, another letter arrived. This one from the DMV. Title verification for her BMW. Registered owner, Marcus James Thompson. Lien holder, none. Paid in full. Year 19. She couldn't breathe, couldn't process it. Every car payment she thought she'd been making. She'd been paying insurance. He'd been paying the actual car. She went to her filing cabinet, pulled out her records, looked at every car she'd ever driven during their marriage. 3 cars total, all titled in his name, all paid off by him. She sat on the floor of the home office, surrounded by papers, and realized she didn't know anything. Didn't know where the mortgage went. Didn't know how the house got paid. Didn't know what her husband actually did with his money. For 23 years, she'd made assumptions, and every single one of them was wrong. The next day, her father received his own letter from the mortgage company. Account paid in full. Year 12. Anonymous beneficiary revealed per legal request. Marcus J. Thompson. Amount, $73,000. Deacon Jerome dropped the letter like it burned him. Lorraine picked it up, read it, and her hand went to her mouth. They called Vanessa immediately. Jerome could barely speak. "Baby, your husband. He paid our house. Paid it off 13 years ago. We thought it was a miracle. We thought it was you helping us. It was him. All along, it was him." Vanessa sat in her parents' living room that afternoon with her mother, father, and sister Janai. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Janai broke the silence. 23 years, she said softly. He never said a word. Not once. Jerome was crying, actually crying. I disrespected that man in his own house, called him things, looked down on him, and he was the one keeping us afloat. Lorraine reached for her husband's hand. "We all did, Jerome. We all did." Vanessa's voice was hollow. Why didn't he tell us? Khalil walked in then. He'd been sitting outside, listening. "Because he loved you more than he loved being right," the young man said. Everyone turned to look at him. "I found out a year ago. Asked him why he never said anything. He told me the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time. I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now." But the revelations weren't done. The next morning, Vanessa got a call from the bank. Miss Claudette Harris, the manager Marcus had worked with for years, asked if Vanessa could come in. It was about M.J. Thompson Holdings, LLC. Vanessa had seen the name on mail over the years, but always assumed it was work-related. She drove to the bank in a daze. Ms. Harris was professional, kind, but her eyes held something like pity. She slid a folder across her desk. Marcus had authorized the release of LLC information to Vanessa. Inside was a complete asset breakdown. The family home, market value $485,000. 4 rental properties, combined value $890,000. A small commercial building, value $320,000. Investment accounts totaling $340,000. Total portfolio value, $2.035 million. Vanessa couldn't breathe, literally couldn't pull air into her lungs. Ms. Harris pushed a glass of water toward her. "Mrs. Thompson, I've worked with your husband for 15 years. He's one of the most disciplined, consistent clients I've ever had. He built all of this quietly, carefully, and legally." Vanessa drove home and sat in the driveway for an hour. She'd called him worthless, dead weight, financially useless, and he was worth over $2 million. had been building wealth while she'd been building resentment. The math didn't just contradict her, it humiliated her. That night, her entire family gathered at her parents' house. Vanessa, her parents, Janai, and Khalil. They sat in the living room that Marcus had ensured they could keep. Nobody knew what to say. The weight of their collective blindness pressed down like humidity. Finally, Deacon Jerome spoke, his voice thick with regret. I taught my daughters to look for men of character. Then when one showed up, I couldn't see it because I was looking for flash instead of foundation. He looked at Vanessa. Baby, that man loved you enough to let you think you were carrying everything. That's not weakness. That's a kind of strength I don't know if I could have managed. Vanessa spent the next 3 days in a fog. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about moments over the years. Marcus coming home tired, but never complaining. Marcus at family dinners, taking her father's criticisms with grace. Marcus letting her shine while he stood in shadows. She'd thought he was okay with it because he had no choice. Never occurred to her he'd chosen it. On the 4th day, she got a text from Marcus. Simple. Direct. We should talk. Whenever you're ready. She called immediately. Can you come home? There was a pause. Then, I'll come by tomorrow, 2 p.m. Vanessa spent the next 24 hours cleaning obsessively, scrubbing floors Marcus had paid for, washing windows in a house Marcus owned. Guilt has a way of making you see your own home differently. By the time 2 o'clock came, she'd run out of things to clean. She sat on the couch and waited. Marcus arrived exactly on time. He looked the same. Calm. Steady. Maybe a little tired, but not broken. Never broken. He sat across from her, and for a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Vanessa found her voice. Why didn't you tell me? Marcus looked at her with those patient eyes she'd stopped seeing years ago. You never asked. And when I tried early on, you said you had it handled. So I let you handle what you wanted to handle. And I handled the rest. A memory surfaced. Year 3 of their marriage. Marcus coming home excited about a rental property he'd just bought. Vanessa, fresh off a promotion, waving it away. We don't need that right now, baby. I'm making good money. We're fine. She'd been so confident, so sure, and he'd just nodded and stopped telling her about the properties. Stopped sharing that part of his life because she'd made it clear she wasn't interested. I treated you like you weren't enough, Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. Like you were less than me. Like you were a burden. Marcus didn't deny it. I know, he said simply. They sat in silence, heavy, painful silence. Then Marcus leaned forward. I need you to understand something, Vanessa. I never needed credit. I didn't need people to know what I was building or what I was doing. I didn't need my name on things or applause for paying bills. That's not who I am. But I did need respect. From my wife, in my own home. And that's what I didn't have. Vanessa broke, completely broke. She cried the kind of tears that come from shame so deep it reaches your bones. Marcus didn't move to comfort her. He just waited. When she finally looked up, she asked the question she was terrified to hear the answer to. Can you ever forgive me? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I already have, he finally said. But forgiveness doesn't mean reset, Vanessa. It doesn't mean we go back to how things were. It means we acknowledge what happened and decide what comes next. She wiped her face. What do you want? Marcus stood up, walked to the window. I want to be seen. Really seen. Not for what I have, but for who I've been. For 23 years, I showed you who I was. Every day, every payment, every quiet sacrifice. And you never looked. They talked for hours. Not arguing, not accusing, just talking. Honest, raw conversation that maybe they should have had years ago. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes. But there was truth. And sometimes truth is the only place healing can start. The next week, Marcus met with Vanessa's parents. Deacon Jerome stood when Marcus entered their home, extended his hand. "Son, I was wrong about you. Dead wrong. And I'm sorry." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "Sir, you did what fathers do. You protected your daughter. I respect that." Lorraine stepped forward, her eyes red from crying. "We took your humility for weakness, Marcus. We should have known better. Should have seen better." Marcus looked at this woman who'd been his mother-in-law for over 2 decades. "A lot of people make that mistake, Mrs. Willis. I don't hold it against you." They sat together, the 3 of them, and talked. Really talked. For the first time, Marcus explained his philosophy. Why he lived modestly. Why he built quietly. Why he never needed recognition. "My grandmother used to say that the loudest person in the room is usually the emptiest. I never wanted to be loud. I just wanted to be solid, reliable, present. Thought that would be enough." Deacon Jerome shook his head sadly. "It was more than enough, son. We were just too blind to see it." Marcus spent time with Khalil that week, too. Father and son sat in the small rental property Marcus was staying in, talking about life, about choices, about legacy. "I'm proud of you, Dad," Khalil said, "for how you handled this. I don't know if I could have been that calm." Marcus looked at his son, this young man he'd raised to be thoughtful and kind. "Remember this, Khalil. Your character is what you do when no one's watching. Your integrity is what you do when everyone is. I built one in private and showed the other in public. Both matter." The community started learning the truth, too. Pastor Wendell Brown, who'd known Marcus for years, asked to speak with him. They met at the church, just the 2 of them in the empty sanctuary. "Marcus, I've known about your generosity for a long time," the pastor said. "The building fund deficit 5 years ago? The $50,000 that came in anonymously? I knew it was you." Marcus looked surprised. "How?" Pastor Brown smiled. "Because I've watched you for 15 years, brother. Watched how you serve, how you give, how you love. Silent givers have a pattern. I recognized yours." The pastor asked for permission to share Marcus's testimony with the congregation, not for praise, but for teaching. The next Sunday, during service, Pastor Brown spoke about silent generosity, about men and women who serve without seeking credit, and he told them about Marcus. Not everything, but enough. Told them about the building fund, about anonymous gifts over the years, about a man who worked a humble job but built a kingdom nobody saw. Vanessa sat in the pew with her parents, listening, crying. The entire church was silent except for the pastor's voice. When he finished, people turned to look at Marcus, not with pity or judgment, with respect. The kind of respect that comes from recognition. The kind Marcus had been missing at home. At Vanessa's job, word started spreading too. Troy Jenkins, Marcus's co-worker and friend for over a decade, visited Vanessa at her office. He brought an envelope. Inside were copies of loans Marcus had given co-workers over the years. Small amounts, 500 here, 1,000 there. All paid back, none with interest, none ever mentioned. "Your husband saved my family's home twice," Troy told Vanessa. "Never asked for thanks, never held it over me, just helped because he could." He pulled out another paper. "This is from when my daughter needed surgery, and I didn't have the deductible. $5,000. He gave it to me like it was nothing. Told me to pay it back when I could. I did. Took me 2 years. And you know what he said when I handed him the last payment? He said, 'I'm proud of you, Troy. That's character. Not proud of me for paying him back. Proud of me for taking care of my daughter.'" Vanessa saw the pattern then, saw it clearly. Marcus gave, never took. Served, never demanded. Built, never bragged. And she'd missed all of it because she'd been too busy looking at herself. Mr. Raymond Pierce provided Vanessa with a complete financial history. 23 years of documents. Bank statements showing mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance premiums, property acquisition documents with dates and amounts. Her parents' mortgage payoff traced back through anonymous channels, every car title, every deed, every receipt. The numbers told a story she'd never bothered to read, a story of love she'd never seen. Weeks passed. Marcus and Vanessa agreed to a trial separation. He moved into one of his rental properties, a modest 2-bedroom apartment. She stayed in the family home. He could have evicted her. Mr. Pierce told him that plainly. "It's your house, Marcus. Legally, you have every right." But Marcus signed papers ensuring she could remain there. No rent. Bills paid. "She's still my wife," he told Raymond. "That house is still her home." Raymond looked at his friend with something like awe. "Even after everything?" Marcus nodded. "Especially after everything. Revenge would be easy. Grace is harder. I choose harder." Vanessa started therapy, started working on herself, started understanding the difference between confidence and arrogance, between independence and isolation. She met with her parents weekly. Her father shared his own stories of pride, of times he'd been blind to blessings because he was looking for them to arrive in specific packages. Her mother taught her about humility, about honoring the people who serve quietly. Slowly, painfully, Vanessa started to change. Not for Marcus, for herself. She learned things she'd never known. The community center she'd been taking Khalil to for years, Marcus built it, donated the land and construction funds anonymously. The scholarship program at their church for single mothers, Marcus funded it. The food pantry that helped families during the pandemic, Marcus kept it running when donations dropped. All of it, done quietly. All of it, while she'd been calling him worthless. 6 months after the trash bags, Marcus and Vanessa met at a neutral place, a coffee shop halfway between their homes. They'd been texting occasionally, short messages, nothing deep, but both knew they needed to talk face to face. Vanessa looked different, softer somehow, less polished, but more real. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me," she said. Marcus stirred his coffee slowly. "I already told you. I forgive you." "But Vanessa, forgiveness doesn't mean we go back. It means we move forward differently. Or we don't move forward together at all." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "What do you want, Marcus?" "Really want?" He looked at her. This woman he'd loved for over 2 decades. This woman who'd broken his heart and his spirit. This woman who was, slowly, becoming someone new. "I want to be seen," he said again. "Not for what I built or what I have, but for who I've been, for the man who came home tired every day and never complained, for the man who paid your parents' mortgage and never asked for credit, for the man who loved you enough to let you think you were carrying us. I want that man to be visible to you, and if he can't be, then we don't have a future." They talked until the coffee shop closed, about everything, about the early years when things were good, about the shift, when her success became more important than their unity, about his silence and her assumptions, about pride and humility and what marriage really means. They didn't solve everything that night, but they started, and sometimes starting is enough. Khalil graduated with his master's degree in business 6 months after that conversation. Both parents attended. They sat separately, but they were both there. During his speech, Khalil thanked his professors, his friends, his family, and then he said something that made Vanessa cry, and made Marcus sit up straighter. I want to thank my father for teaching me that true wealth isn't counted. It's lived. That character is built in private and revealed in pressure. That humility isn't weakness. It's strength that doesn't need an audience. Dad, you showed me how to be a man, not by what you said, but by how you lived. Khalil looked at both his parents. And Mom, thank you for teaching me that growth is possible, that we can be wrong and still become right. That love means fighting for yourself, so you can show up better for others. The next generation had learned what the last one missed, and maybe that was the point all along. Marcus sat on the porch of his rental property one evening, watching the sunset. Mr. Raymond Pierce stopped by, like he did sometimes, just to check in. "Any regrets?" Raymond asked, settling into the chair next to his friend. Marcus thought about it. Really thought. "Not about what I built," he finally said. "Maybe about what I didn't say. Maybe I should have spoken up sooner. Maybe I should have demanded to be seen instead of waiting to be discovered." Raymond nodded slowly. "Maybe. But you said plenty, Marcus. They just weren't listening. They sat in comfortable silence, these two men who'd known each other for decades. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "Love keeps trying, Raymond, even when it's not seen, even when it's not respected. Love keeps showing up. I did that for 23 years. Don't know if I'd do it the same way again, but I don't regret trying." Raymond put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "The world needs more men like you, brother. Men who choose grace over revenge. Men who build quietly and stand firmly. You didn't break when she tried to break you. That matters." As the sun set behind the buildings, Marcus thought about his journey, about a young man with an inheritance and a choice, about building something real while everyone watched something fake, about being invisible in his own life, about the moment everything changed, about trash bags and deeds and truth that couldn't stay buried, about a wife who'd called him worthless and then learned he was worth everything, about forgiveness and grace and the difference between the two, about whether love could be rebuilt after being so thoroughly destroyed. He didn't have all the answers, didn't know if he and Vanessa would find their way back to each other or if they'd find their way to something new separately, didn't know if the lesson would stick or if old patterns would return. But he knew one thing. He'd done what he set out to do. He'd loved fully, built quietly, and served humbly. And when he was pushed to the edge, he'd stood in his truth without cruelty, without revenge, without malice. He'd let the facts speak for themselves. And the facts had spoken loudly enough to be heard by everyone who'd spent 23 years refusing to listen. 23 years he carried weight no one saw. The day they finally saw it, everything changed. Not because he demanded it, but because truth, when it finally speaks, doesn't need to shout. If this story made you think about the people in your life who serve without seeking credit, drop a comment and tell me about them. Sometimes we're all guilty of missing what's right in front of us. Until the next story, remember, humility isn't weakness. It's strength that doesn't need an audience. Peace.